Of that. The song title is "Lying Through the Tears."
We talked about this, and you were joking to say you should sing it. I'm like, I don't want to subject our
You
listeners
do
to
too.
that.
You do too.
Good morning, Corinne. Well, I'm actually really precise with lyrics. So when I do joke lyrics, I spend a lot of time and get them just right, and I even have other people, of course, professionally sing them. So
Lying through the tears.
that is Dave Evans. I think that's my footage, right, from my
It
iPhone, the
is
day
your
of
footage.
the town hall where Jared Huffman presided over the chaos of the ranching community going on full offensive, saying how terrible we environmentalists are for forcing out, evicting the poor ranchers. That's one of the guys who's staying. And today
By
we're going to
choice.
focus on, gosh, a whole show of digging into how shall I put this? The rancher's side of the story, which I would say is not filled with integrity. How's that for a gentle way to put it?
Multi-millionaires stealing your tax dollars.
Yeah, total huge welfare. Oh my God, for corporate welfare for the ranchers who pose as the poor, hardworking family farmer. Good morning, Danielle. Good morning, Honest Doubter. I know your actual name, but I'm going to go by Honest Doubter because that's your handle and keep it at that so you can lay low. And
Yes.
Skylar and
Good morning.
I realize as you're showing that video there, panning across a panel of people ending on Dave Evans, we are in the position where we choose to name names at times, including, in my case today, a lead scientist for the Nature Conservancy
Mm.
who holds a PhD,
Mm.
like just impressive credentials from Yale and UC Berkeley. So,
Mm.
hey, scientists, must be true.
Must be. Must be. Uh, so between questionable things being published by scientists and an entire propaganda speech that was delivered to us by a rancher while we were tourists inside of the park recently, we just feel inundated with lies. And we're going to get to that. And speaking of scientists, I have some local news, some not great news, but something that my girlfriend was very upset about. And I think from all the years of her hearing me talk about shark tagging and the stupidity of shark tagging and the lack of accomplishing anything with the data, and we just keep accumulating the data, she let me know about um, two wolves, lead pack wolves that were killed in the collaring process by scientists just recently, and a third one in Colorado. Same thing, so that we can tag and track these animals. Now, the damage done is far beyond death. This was a matriarch. This was an animal who was a breeding member of a pack. And for those who don't know, wolves mate for life, which means that not everyone in the pack is mating and, you know, pumping out puppies. It's a earned right to do so. And not only that, but they pass down information. They pass down their wisdom. They pass down how to survive, how to avoid humans, things like that. So every time that you kill a leader, you're causing immeasurable damage to the future of wolves. And it's not even wildlife services doing it. It's not even ranchers doing it. It's not even hunters doing it. It's not even tribal members doing it for cultural reasons. Now it's the scientists trying to stick tags on them. And the number of leaders of the packs that they've killed makes a pessimist like me think, is this fucking on purpose? Like they are doing the will of ranchers in the name of science. Oh shit, killed another one. Killed another leader of a pack. Sorry.
This will be touching on a theme today, Skylar. I mean, this stuff is so upsetting for me just because I'm a, well, as you are, big animal lover. I just look at that beautiful animal and can we just leave them alone? Can we just leave them alone to be their beautiful wild selves? And even I will bend over backwards and be the optimist and say, even if they mean well to do a study that's going to show that we need to back off, so much of the really detailed, incredibly impressive, intellectually impressive science is put on a really crappy premise, a shoddy foundation.
Knowledge without wisdom is worthless.
Knowledge without wisdom is worthless.
What are they going to do with this information, Jack?
Right.
Because the wolves already aren't allowed to go certain places. When a rancher kills one and says, "Oops, I thought it was a dog," nothing happens to the rancher. When a hunter kills one and says, "Oops, I thought it was a coyote," nothing happens. And then in the meantime, we actually have government agencies going out and intentionally killing them in the name of agriculture,
Wildlife
while we're
services.
pretending that we want the animals to do well.
You're referring to, for those people who don't know, the agency called Wildlife Services. That's a division of the USDA, and this is before the Trump administration comes in and
Oh yeah,
care less about anything. It's all in service of the cattle industry. You need to clear wild animals out of the way so we can run the domesticated animals for profit on the land, and then claim, as we're doing now, just the 100% lie is saying that we need cattle to provide ecological services like keeping fire danger down and keeping invasive species out. And that's, again, back to the microcosm is the word I use for point raise, what the argument is locally here. We need cows on the land to do services, ecological services. It's a complete lie, folks.
it is.
And even just, I just threw up a graphic with the cow and the grass and all that. And it's kind of the theme today in the poster, which is, I mean, look at that scene. We're all conditioned to say, oh, pretty green grass. And in fact, it's very, very brilliantly done as public relations, as propaganda. Look how thick that grass is. Look how tall it is. It's up to the ankles of a cow. It's probably, what, a nice thick blade of whatever kind of European grass, I assume. I don't know for sure where that is. It could be Midwest, but um, thick green grass. Isn't it pretty? And look at a few cows, and yeah, they've got tags in the ears, but aren't they peaceful out there? And family farms, organic integrity, and then of course the hidden frame is, watch carefully, Skylar. Watch the presto changeo. Hello. Oh, computer's thinking it's tired.
Uh-oh.
It's total BS. And Strauss uses this
Oh.
imagery, and Horizon Organic Products here in California use this imagery. Uh, what's the other one? Gosh, I mean, they all do. Clover is the other one here. We see billboards, and it's whether it's cartoons or Ben and Jerry's. It's always the beautiful green grass, whether it's a flat plain or rolling hills here in California, with a few happy, black and white.
Do you know what Leah
All
is
seems
referring to?
okay. Leah says, "Hi guys. Jack, tell Skylar how a certain unnamed organization we know intimately was all set up to help ranchers on this issue until we said, oh no, the hell you don't." Yeah, so I will choose to be politically correct. Well, for reasons I won't even say on screen, but an animal protection organization, I would say not an animal rights organization, was willing to work with a volunteer who reached out to ranchers to, reach across the aisle. And I'm not going to belabor the story. The point is,
Okay.
we environmentalists have to speak the truth, the total truth, and that's calling out the lies and the BS, as opposed to, well, we don't want to say bad things about them. We need to work with them. And that in our group at Point Reyes is kind of the ongoing discussion that will happen, the conflict between you and me, who are just going to, no, the TNC is full of beans, full of BS, as opposed to, don't say bad things about them. We need to work with them. Well, both are true. We can call out the BS and also work with them, is my stance as an environmentalist. You have to speak the truth. You can't go in compromising. That's the job of politicians.
Before we get too deep into that, I've got to say to people, do you know about wolves that they take care of their elderly?
I
Not
don't
only,
know. I didn't know that. No.
not only do they mate for life, they take care of their elderly. I mean, they're already better than we are. Jesus. Uh,
I didn't know that, and I'm not surprised. I mean, for me, it's I don't need to understand all the details of how wolves work to know that we should leave them alone and not mess with them. And Honest Outer throws out another example of this. It says it reminds me of a scientist who destroyed a 5,000-year-old bristlecone pine named Prometheus while inspecting it for cataloging. Same story.
oh, dude, you should see the collars that these scientists are putting on pups, on baby wolves. I mean, they're massive and massive. And then I'm like, well, what happens when this pup grows?
Or even just gets tangled up in a branch. I mean, we've had
Yes.
with cats and dogs. I have a collar. I mean, we had cats in New York State in the countryside, and the danger is always with a collar. You want to make it breakaway collar. So if they
Yeah.
get, a branch goes right through to it and hooks them, they're pinned and they're going to die.
Oh, I've seen it. I've seen a leash or a collar get in the way. Shit, it happens to me. I'd rather hike with almost nothing on. You got a backpack on and you're trying to get through some stuff and you get caught.
Chris Cedar, good morning, says the same thing. Banding birds and tagging other wildlife is cruel and unnecessary. Putting an artificial device on a wild animal is inviting trouble, and I'm sure a lot more animals have died in this process. I worked for 3 or 4 seasons for the Golden Gate Raptor Observatory. Good organization, good people, well-meaning. I quit after 3 seasons in part because part of their program was the Hawk Watch, which I was on, where you stand on Hawk Hill overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge and you identified birds flying over. So you didn't touch them. You just looked at them with binoculars. I
Hmm.
was all for it. I learned all the raptors around here. The other half of the program is banding,
Yeah.
where they catch raptors, hawks, and all the accipiters in nets and then tag them. And then you hold them out for demonstration to show people, get to see a hawk. And that whole thing just creeped me out. And arguably, again, you could say they were, it's back to your point or what we were discussing. They're proving it, hey, they need protection. But don't we know that going in? Do we need science to prove something so obvious?
And what's the point when you elect somebody who gets rid of the Environmental Protection Agency, who is getting rid of national parks? I mean, who are you kidding? Another paper that
Well,
furthered somebody's career is what it's going to take to save animals? Stop it.
so
And the threat that is perceived about wolves is only promoted by ranchers. Like, who has had a negative experience in their lives personally with a wolf? Like, five out of 8 billion people ever, and it's probably because your clumsy ass was stumbling upon a den. It, the only problem that exists with wolves is because of the existence of animal agriculture.
yeah. Well, it goes back to this pretty green scene with a few cows on a green hillside. I would talk about this every single show. Like, look at that, folks, and see through it. And the conditioning is so strong. It's so strong. As you and I have said many times in the show, for 20 years, you and I drove in and out of Point Reyes and see the green hillsides and think, oh, how pretty. And, cows until you get educated. And then inevitably, if you get educated, you have no choice but to become vegan. That or you're living with hypocrisy and denial, which I did for so many years. I
A
can't prove it.
choice.
I don't. What's that?
That is a choice, and
Well,
it's
it
a
is a choice,
choice.
but I mean, it's tough. I mean, here in the den of vegans or the veganism den, I can speak the truth. There is no way to do that and reconcile it without hypocrisy and kidding yourself. And I don't say that to be nasty to people. It's just the truth. That is a blunt truth. The destruction of this cattle industry here, which is this is the false face of it, the propaganda face. It's a few cows in a grassy field versus the reality. If I may, here, I'm going to move this one out of the way
Hmm.
and go to. Da, 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 da. Let's do this one here.
Hmm.
We've shown this before, but this kind of sums it up
Hmm.
too.
Yeah, make that one bigger.
I am doing that. Okay, so this is along the fence line at Point Reyes Seashore. And this has been shown before, but it really I was looking at like what images can we show on this show to deny the falsehood of this image. Of course, this is not the
Hmm.
actual title on it. I seem to have changed the title somehow. But,
Hmm.
I mean, there's the cartoon version of Strauss and Ben and Jerry's and
Hmm.
Horizon and like, oh, it's pretty. They make a beautiful cartoon out of it. Oh,
Hmm.
we love cows. Aren't they beautiful animals? While we're basically practicing without exaggeration bestiality. You're sticking your hand into the anus of a cow and then artificially forcibly impregnating them, and it's a horror show. And this is what the land looks like. And I did choose this image specifically. On the left side is where cows graze.
Hmm.
There's a fence, which is right in the center of the picture. And on the right side is where cows do not graze, and that's elk territory. And much more and taller vegetation, which is perpetually sequestering carbon and harboring plants. Whereas on the left side, it goes green and then it goes fallow. It goes green, then it goes fallow.
Hmm.
So, and I was actually listening to a George Monbiot talk recently, the difference in his lexicon between carbon storage and carbon sequestration,
Oh.
meaning storage for him is long term. On the
Hmm.
right side of this picture, that is carbon storage. It's there 24/7, 365, forever,
Hmm.
until we blow it up with a nuclear bomb. On the left side, there's carbon sequestration when the um, grass goes green again and the plants grow, and then the cattle beat it down again.
Hmm.
The destructive industry, extractive industry as well. And again, on the left side, folks, that could be bright green, but it's still short grass that's going to become this burnt grass the other half of the year. So this is a perfect illustration of livestock versus wild animals.
And even at full growth, the vegetation that you were describing on the left, the root system is about that long.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
You're not doing much. If anything, the plant just ate up all the nitrogen that's at the surface thanks to all the poop that you keep dumping on the surface of the ground.
And so, folks, so the other topic we're going to dive into today, but I want to touch on it right now, is so-called regenerative ranching. And that's the notion that you take the cows and instead of putting them in a feedlot standing by I-5,
Hmm.
down in Coalinga and Bakersfield, is you move the cows around the land over a larger area of land so that they supposedly, allegedly, as Stephen Colbert would say, mimic the behavior of primitive, prehistoric megafauna, meaning bison. So cows become just like bison, which is complete nonsense, but it sounds reasonable on the face of it. Well, we move them around. Isn't that better? And for so many reasons, no, it's not actually. It actually creates more of a problem because it takes up more land and creates more wasteland where we don't tolerate wild animals like wolves living on the land because they threaten to eat the cows, which is the cash crop.
And our local liar, one of the few that is remaining in the seashore, but is out there busily continuing to spread the lies,
A rancher.
a rancher.
Yeah.
Well, he pointed out how there was going to be a problem with the elk population because of the lack of natural predators. Well,
While standing in
you're
front
leaving
of
out you're leaving out that you're the reason that there's a lack of natural predators. Two, he also talked about the importance of grazing down the wild radish because they might shade out what, Jack? Native plants?
Yeah.
No, they might shade out the other non-native plants that are there for his cows.
And of course, as I like to joke, is the amazing thing about cattle, whether they're by the current ranchers or whether it's by the nature conservancy's cattle they're going to bring in, those are specially trained cows,
Yeah,
and they condition them in the laboratory with science and with collars and with wires and things to have them just eat the non-native plants, and they
yeah,
don't eat the native plants. They're that trained.
mm,
Very impressive what they can do with
that is
cow people.
impressive.
So,
So, Jack, you gave me a teaser of
yeah.
one of the old articles that you're going to pull up because Sasha Gennett is a name that we are seeing more and more because of the TNC. And a couple of weeks ago, I, in one of my own videos, talked about the garbage that she is spewing out of her mouth for the TNC. But you pulled up a old, I think it was Autobahn publication that she was a part of that also was pretty laughable. And you going to walk us through all of those? Are we going to be able to fit them in today?
Well, we'll see how it goes.
All right.
We'll see how many people run out of the studio and whether you do. But so we're picking on one specific scientist because she's a PhD with an impressive portfolio. And it's like, okay, Jack, who the hell are you? You didn't even get your master's, let alone your PhD. And this woman is a range scientist anyway, so she's a consultant for the
So
Nature
just so we're
Conservancy.
clear, when it comes to the people in their approach to science, if it's a PhD talking about climate change, then the red people will say science is stupid. If it's a PhD saying that cattle are good, then they'll be like, oh, yeah, science is great.
Well, there's that too, of course, too. And it's tricky. It's this is where I lose the maggot, MAGAT audience.
Mm.
I'm totally pro
Just
science.
now. We just now lost them.
Right. One person who is maybe listening walked away. I'm a big believer in science, but it depends on whose science. There's an awful lot of junk science, and I submit for your perusal and approval, ladies and gentlemen, Sasha Gennett, if I'm pronouncing her name right there, PhD, is the director here in the bottom of this. I've highlighted at the bottom of the Nature Conservancy's page here. This is a white paper on their website. She is the director of North America Sustainable Grazing Lands. I think that means North American Sustainable Grazing Lands. And well, who is? Let's get into her. This is again on the Nature Conservancy website now.
Uh-oh.
So there she is, nice lady. I'm nothing against her personally. Never met her. Science and Policy Advisor for Nature Conservancy. So we've
Mm.
seen her name already with regard to Point Reyes, and her biography here. I can make this bigger. Yeah. Her academic background is in ecosystem science, natural resources management, habitat restoration, undergraduate degree from Yale, and then a master's in science and a PhD from UC Berkeley in the Department of Environmental Science, Policy, and Management.
Ag school.
What's that?
It's an ag school.
Is UC Berkeley an ag school?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe not on the level of Davis, but
Okay, I didn't know that.
a
I think
lot
of
of
them as
ag,
a
a lot of ag funding.
okay. I think of them as a good school and a neutral school, but who knows? And more importantly, I will do the thing George Carlin recommends, which is thinking for myself and realize, well, probably some good people come out of there, and
Sure.
some people come out of there spouting cattle industry propaganda, which is, in my humble opinion, what the good doctor here is doing. For her doctorate, she studied the effect of livestock grazing and management on vegetation and birds in California grassland. So this is key. This is key. So this is, you write your PhD thesis oftentimes, and then that's what you use as your credential to get hired in the industry. In this case, the sort of semi-cattle industry for the Nature Conservancy, to be a consultant. And she works with the cattle industry oftentimes in partnerships. Love that
Mm.
term. I'm partnering with Adolf Hitler. I'm partnering with the Trump administration to advance the ball in the right direction. What's so funny, Skylar? You cynic. So, what is this wonderful study she did? And I'm going to get back to that because, of course, folks, teaser, stick around. We have that study.
Oh no.
We have that study. What is the study that study the effects of livestock grazing? And in fact, I am going to get this out of the way now and go back to I'm going to tease you with the title of this study just to show it to you. Because this paper here, there's a few different things. This is all Sasha Gennett. I'm just picking on her. I'm sorry. This is the study they're referring to. Livestock
Yeah,
grazing.
that's the one.
Now, it is a masterclass in propaganda titling. I'm as a copywriter, my hat is off. I'm in awe.
Mm.
Livestock grazing supports native plants and songbirds in a California annual grassland. So, Skylar, if I may, although you're not exactly neutral, what
Mm.
is your reading that title? What do you take away?
Well, I can tell you that back when I was doing social media in the form of Instagram, I read portions of it laughing, and I just called it science without the science. And I just like the complete lack of ecology in the minds of these scientists, meaning considering the other organisms that are there. Like the idea that the height that cattle graze plants down to is the right height for everything. I mean, how basically moronic is that by itself? You're not supposed to have one height of anything in any true habitat, or at least not most that I come across. They may exist somewhere, but that's going to be a very special circumstance. So, I sorry, Jack. I've got to inject this because they did some of the stuff about how cattle are good for the sage grouse, and this has now been backpedaled to where nah, screw the sage grouse. We're gonna kill the sage also. So first they got the cattle to stay for the benefit of the sage grouse, and now with the Trump administration in there, like, we don't even have to fake it anymore. Get everything out, kill all the wildlife, even the sage grouse and the sage, because cattle don't really like the sage that much. Boy, I went off track. Did I answer your question in any way, shape, or form?
In some way, shape, or form, yes. Anushka, oh my gosh, I wonder if this is Anushka from Germany. But it's so ironic, she writes, that even when you have plenty of wild and native grazers, certain people would still advocate grazing by cows.
Bingo.
Bingo,
Bingo.
bingo, bingo, bingo.
Bingo. We have, okay, let me walk everybody through this. The number one cause of species extinction is habitat loss. What's using up that habitat? Animal agriculture. People want to blame development. Human development doesn't hold a candle to the amount of land that animal agriculture is using up. Next, we have an opportunity to give those native grazers some habitat and solve a problem that we supposedly are facing in needing the vegetation to be grazed. Oh, great! We can finally help the native grazers come back and solve another problem. Nope, 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 nope. That's only, nope, only for cattle. Only for cattle.
To underline that point that you just made, and then continue on with your next one, give you time to get your thoughts there. But we stood with a rancher
Yeah,
at Point Reyes Seashore 2 weeks ago,
yeah.
and he was doing two things simultaneously, not aware that they were complete contradictions. One was, while standing in front of his hundreds of cows, saying the elk are going to be a problem because there will be too many of them without predators. This is at Point Reyes Seashore. And there's, I don't know, let's say 800 or 900 elk right now. That if we have thousands and thousands of elk, there are going to be too many of them because there are no predators. And that's a problem. Um, and simultaneously, he said, we need the cows to graze down the invasives, which of course they graze down everything.
Yeah.
So cows are good because they cut the grass, in effect, but we can't have elk because there'll be too many of them, even though elk could cut the grass and do what his cows do.
Yeah.
And he was, I mean, actually, let me ask you a question, Skylar,
Mm.
because because I who I am. I was like looking at the guy saying, I think he believes this. I think he has himself completely brainwashed where he doesn't see the complete hypocrisy in what he just said. Do you have an opinion, or do you think he's like conniving and lying to us two tourists? He didn't know who we were. What do you make of
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. You repeat a lie enough times, you start to believe it, right?
Right.
I'd love to be able to hire someone to analyze what these ranchers say and figure out how much of it they actually believe and how much of it is they are lying because they know continuing those lies is vital to their livelihood. And neither one of those is a very good attribute for a human being.
Yeah, and I don't know this rancher. I mean, I have not spoken directly with Albert Strauss in a very very long time.
Well,
I've met him once.
congratulations.
Yeah, but I sort of like part of me, the naive part of me that thinks everybody can always get along, which isn't sadly true. I think that he's smart enough to know that it's nonsense, but he has to just sort of stick to the script, stick to the script, stick to the script, and then, as you say, you kind of semi believe it, or you believe it enough, like I did. Whenever I point my finger at somebody, I see four fingers pointing back at me, and I say, "Well, that's a stupid way to point your hand. Point it like this." Um, I did the same thing with eating meat. I kind of knew, but I didn't want to know.
Yeah.
That way, I could keep eating my burgers. And like, I love cows, but it's they treat them well, and they grow old, and then they kill them anyway, so they're going to die anyway. It's like a half truth clouded in your head, semi suppressed.
Hmm.
Just tamp it down. And I think that's what these guys have to do. To your point, where they're out of business.
Yeah. I never publish these things. I go because it's burning in my brain while I'm out exercising. I'm ranting and I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to publish this. And then I don't. But I was asking this exact same question that you're bringing up. I'm like, did he believe that shit?
Yeah.
Or is he just trying to put it, he thought we were tourists. Is he just continuing to spread lies so that other people will spread the lies? And then everyone will believe the lies
Right.
that the ranchers need to be there.
Right.
Let's greet Fab Dance.
Fab Dance or Fab Donk.
And Anusha.
I think it's Anushka. I'm hoping this is Anushka D. I don't want to call her out if she's going by Anushka the tree, but there's an Anushka in our cattle group, in our Point Reyes anti-cattle
Go ahead and
group.
read it.
A board member of the Mid-Peninsula Open Space once asked the Mid-Pen scientist why they can't allow native grazers instead of cows. The answer by the scientist was that the wild animals could not be controlled.
We talk about control on this show a lot.
Boy, is that true. That's actually an honest answer. We need to control the animals we put on the land. Now, of course, you and I would, how to put it mildly, would say, why do we need to control the wild animals? That it's not a wild animal. Just let them do their thing. And this is the management thing, the control, control, control always. Yes, Anushka. Wow. Well, good to read you, to know you're here. You and I have not spoken in ages. I met Anushka years ago, helping the elk and hauling in water and all that stuff. So,
So
so
let's think about this control thing and what's accomplished with the control, um, because you controlled the wild animals by putting up an 8 foot fence, which is not very nice. But if there was a true will, you could put up an 8 foot fence around all of Point Reyes and at least give the elk that, because certainly, and while that is consuming resources and not something that I'm actually advocating for, I'm just saying if there's a will, there's a way. When it comes to the cattle, they put up endless amounts of fencing,
yeah,
and they tolerate cattle violating leases by going into land that they're not allowed to go to. So this idea that only wildlife are not controlled is an illusion. The cattle aren't even being controlled.
yeah,
And so much is being put into controlling these cattle, and it's still failing. They go into wild habitat and destroy it and muddy up the river streams and consume the plants and destroy burrows. And oh, you don't hear about that in the news, do you? All you hear is, oh shit, what's going to happen 20 years from now if nature actually succeeds? We can tolerate 9 fucking thousand shitty planet destroying animals right now, but what about 20 years from now when wild animals reach those numbers?
yeah. And we've heard that story. Like, we can't let the elk out and run free because they'll get onto the roads. I mean, and the irony is, we just were in the park with this rancher, and what was he doing? He showed up to bring 3 cows that had gotten outside the fence and onto Pierce Point Road, and he had to round them up with his little putt putt and get them back into under control inside the fence, which of course we wanted him to do.
That's a great point. At that exact time, he was going out to round up cattle that weren't where they're supposed to be, which is the concern about wildlife. They might not go where we want them to go. Here,
We have such an educated audience. So, honest outer, you and I think alike so often. So, the great Upton Sinclair quote: "It's difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on his not understanding it." That is just so profoundly true. I quote that all the time, so I memorized it, showing off that I had memorized it. And of course, NC, thank you and good morning. Good morning. The number one invasive organisms are ranchers. That's even a subset of humans, who are, of course, the ultimate invasive species. But ranchers are a subset of humans and doing far more destructive work,
mm,
just by far. We participate by eating ranch beef and dairy products, and wearing the clothes and all that. But yeah, it is a dirty, dirty, destructive business.
yeah, I mean, people talk about um, wildlife invading ranch land. I wonder who was there first. Hmm. Uh, I guess.
Oh, Fab Dance, we're saying, is technically Fab Dan C. Okay, so you're a Dan. Crazy that my desired screen name was still taken 19 years ago. Yeah, I've got a phone number that's 30 years old, buddy. So I get it.
Yeah,
Uh,
and Alan Savory just I
oh God, I was
things I would
so
like to.
Alan Savory is spelled Allan, and I'll read this. Alan Savory has been incredibly successful. People love the idea of regenerative agriculture. Very successful greenwashing. So just last night, in preparation for the show, I was watching a video of him, not the famous TED talk he did, but it was an Oxford debate between him and Alan Savory. Excuse me, Alan Savory and George Monbiot, and it was really fascinating to watch Alan Savory. He's avuncular, paternal, um, well-spoken South African elderly man now in his 70s, and he's very reasonable and he's very polite. And George, they're referring to each other collegially, and he's just continually going off in these bizarre tangents
Mhm,
about desertification is the major problem, and insisting, get this, with a straight face and a wonderful South African man's accent, that the solution to the climate crisis, and for him, again, desertification, he kept saying that word, is more cows on the land.
Imagine a cattleman thinking that.
Yeah, exactly. South African cattle rancher who also, I watched him in this recording explain how he thought, for a time, along with many other scientists, he spread the blame. We thought too many elephants in the African plains were a
Right.
problem and causing desertification. So we presided over the slaughter, the killing. And he glossed over this. I'm dragging it out so it sinks in. 40,000 elephants
Generation after
killed.
generation after generation, entire lineages of families.
Of elephants killed. And then at the end, he says, and I'm the only one. He takes credit for this. I mean, just no emotion, perfect scientist in the worst sense of the word. I'm the only one that admits we made get this, a blunder. It was a blunder. Oops. We shouldn't have killed 40,000 elephants. Oops, that was my mistake. But that's not going to stop me from getting up on stage and now saying we need more cows on the land. Which,
How can the elephants have been targeted because they were causing desertification, and then he admits, "Oops, that's not true," and then turn around and say, well, "We still need cattle to prevent desertification."
well, my opinion is he's got an ego that makes my big ego seem like a P. Just no self awareness, no regret, not connected to his heart. I mean, for someone who would do that, I would look to at the end of the movie The Cove, an emotional wallop of a film, not just for the slaughter of dolphin. Louis C. Hoyos' documentary, award winning, The Cove,
Yeah, yeah,
and the guy who did the show Flipper.
which is still going on.
It's still being aired?
No, the slaughter is still
Right,
taking place.
right at Taiji in Japan. Is that the name of the town? In any case, he at the end of the film, the guy who Dan something or O'Bannon something. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
um, who did the show Flipper, has actual heartfelt remorse about what he did, saying in effect that dolphins, should be held in captive.
The lie of the dolphin's face looking like it's smiling.
The lie of the dolphin's face looking like it's smiling. Very good, thank you. I'd forgotten that detail. He's out there with a sandwich board in the street, stumping, saying, don't do this dolphin kill. That's the face of an actual human being with regret, as opposed to Alan Savory, who just glosses over it and goes on to the next debacle he's going to stump for. Just horrific, horrific, monstrous person who doesn't seem like a monster.
This regenerative thing is really out of control. And I mentioned this to our Laura Cunningham the other day, who loves deserts, lives in a desert. And if people don't know this, deserts are actual habitats. Like these things aren't accidents. There are ecosystems that are meant to look like deserts, and there are creatures that live inside of those ecosystems. It is not your job to make deserts turn into uh, grasslands. It is not your job to make deserts turn into forests. Uh, some things exist because they exist. This people are like, oh my god, this desert is now producing fruits and vegetables. That's terrible. Where the fuck did you get the water to do that? I bet you stole it from the animals that desperately needed it. What happened to the animals that needed that desert habitat to survive? Oh, did you kill them all? I wonder. Um, then you have the exact flip side of this, saying trees are encroaching upon these lands.
Grasslands.
People, do you understand what succession is?
No.
Nature takes time. Certain things replace other things, and it's the way it's supposed to be. You don't get to show up and say, oh, this is what I'm familiar with, and this is how it should have always been and will always be evermore.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
And I mean, even on Marty Griffin Preserve here, they were saying that, we need to cut down the 150-year-old Douglas fir tree because it's encroaching on a grassland versus no, it's a tree succeeding and growing for the last 100 years, and it was invading a grassland. I mean, the projection, and it's always killing. It's always killing. So I want to do
yeah,
two things here before we're done, and we have some time. But
yeah,
Sasha Gennett. So I found this, which I had not seen before. It's a short read, 6-minute read. It says "Earth
uh,
Friendly Beef" by Sasha Gennett, and this is what I realize is if you want to work for the cattle industry and
yeah,
secure your financial future, you
yeah.
write a paper like this, and they're going to love you up because you're a PhD scientist out of UC Berkeley. How sustainable practices, grazing practices, excuse me, can protect soil, water, and biodiversity. I mean, just that right there. And again, I feel like I'm Ari Melber saying, well, let me see what the Trump administration has to say in their defense. Like, no, I'm not going to go there. Livestock is one of the best tools available for managing land to benefit soil, water, and biodiversity. Essentially, good grazing management in the right places is good for native plants and wildlife. Grazing animals can help manage fire risk. This is what we're hearing at Point Reyes. And strong rural economies
Jesus.
rooted in ranching help slow urban and agricultural sprawl. And poor Schuyler, look what we had to subject him to, folks, for your listening pleasure and your educational efforts to spread this truth in the face of this absolutely ubiquitous, crazy lie.
Sasha, you're a compromised human being and a bad human being.
There's Schuyler. It's like, "Arr, arr."
Jack, how many times did you have to read the word manage in what, two sentences, three?
Yeah,
Because it's honestly, the word manage is also open to interpretation.
you
Like
know,
every single time you use the word manage, it gives you a loophole. I mean, even if you fail at the goal of reducing the fire fuel, you can still say that you were managing it. Hey, the cattle were in there managing it. We failed to accomplish the goal, but we were managing.
yeah. And next sentence here. Ranchers, I mean, this is a scientist speaking, so it must be based in science, right?
Yeah.
Ranchers are deeply committed to protecting the natural resources that make their livelihoods possible. Well, that's okay. I mean, I want to just be a cheap shot and say that's a lie, which it is. Where's your evidence? Where's your scientific support of this broad, daring thesis? And then, oh, wait, she gives an example. For example, Meredith Ellis, a second generation rancher technician, uses soil health and sustainable grazing practices to help sequester carbon, to withstand extreme weather events, to safeguard water quality, and
Bullshit.
provide. Well, says the voice of reason, and provide consumers with beef they can feel good about buying. So that's everything the industry wants to hear. And yes, folks, there is no banana evidence to back that up. It's just a statement like I would make as a layman. No supporting evidence. And it says then right after that highlighted area says you can check out our story here. Those early years spent studying grasslands and working on ranches instilled a deep appreciation in me, Sasha Gennett, for the people who dedicate their lives to producing food and the many often overlooked contributions they make to land management. Now, through my work with the Nature Conservancy, I luckily partner with local ranchers to promote the conservation value of grazing lands and advance sustainability goals across the complex beef supply chain. So basically, translation, I'm a lying PR shill who knows where my bread is buttered.
Yeah. Which leads me to wanting to read Fab Dan C's comment. I am very uncomfortable with the state of scientific funding. We are going to see a lot of pro cattle scientific papers because that's all that is going to be funded. This
Yes.
hits very close to home because this was true with the shark industry when I was doing sharks, 25 years ago. We had these pseudoscientists coming in and basically entertaining people with fishing shows, fishing for creatures that previous scientists had worked hard to get listed as protected so that this exact type of harassment wouldn't take place anymore. And then scientists were hurting for funding. Well, hey, here comes a millionaire with his own fishing show who says, hey, all you have to do is let me operate under your scientific permit. And here's all this money and all these resources for you. And now the world, similar to the cattle industry, thinks that this guy who is basically exploiting animals of the ocean is a conservationist, such as these ranchers who are exploiting all terrestrial animals for their own benefit are conservationists.
Yeah, and I don't see the solution, unfortunately, to this. I mean, we live in a capital system where everybody needs to earn a living. If the cattle industry reached out to me and said, "Jack, we'll give you 100 grand a year, 150 grand a year to come to our side,"
Mm,
I would say no, but it would be a slow, painful no.
mm,
Like, wow, that would be nice.
mm.
Yeah, no, I don't think so, guys. I can't sell my soul for any amount of money. Can't do it. And it's just so easy to do it. And then you move into well, this is the bitter part of me that works as an environmentalist, where you do it because it's the right thing to do, and you find your friends, and you get to speak the truth and save your soul versus sell it to say basically PR propaganda. And when I was looking across the internet for different things written by dear old Sasha, it's just staggering. I mean, it's just if you write this stuff, you are the darling of the industry, and there's an endless supply of funding and publications and interviews and opportunities. It's just you're in with industry. You sold your soul to say clean coal, or in this case, regenerative ranching.
That last bit that you read is something that I noticed like almost as soon as I turned to the livestock industry from the fishing industry was they can't even get through one sentence promoting that they're helping nature without ending the sentence talking about actually helping the local economy and family, generational families. I'm like, can you talk about science for a full fucking sentence before having to distract us with, and just in case you find out that it's actually not helping nature, we are at least helping culture and money. Yeah.
It's the now what I would call the in this current era the Trumpian lie. I'm going to give you much better health care at a fraction of the price. I mean, it's the P.T. Barnum. Just tell people whatever they want to hear and say it emphatically and say it often. So the next sentence here, I mean, this is just a total PR fluff piece. By partnering with family-owned cattle operations to test new on-ranch practices. Wow, that's impressive. That's a phrase. New on-ranch, not new off-ranch practices or new non-ranch practices, and, and cooperating with food companies to source sustainable. Like, what
As
does that
opposed to what?
mean?
Wait, what were you working with before? Not a food company? Hey,
Oh God!
we're selling our beef to the auto industry.
So, I mean, this is why when I read this stuff as a copywriter, it's just like it's so masterful. Like
Yeah.
people can't believe this, can they?
There's
And
so much
unfortunately,
of it, man. It's in sports too. Like it's a product of a dumb population where you can just use these 50
buzzwords.
cent words and it impresses people because they're really sitting there thinking, I don't understand what I just heard, but I'm impressed. Uh,
Well,
let,
how about this? We're working to mainstream livestock production practices that actively restore and regenerate nature. What would those practices be? Could you give me a detailed explanation of what those are, other than move the cows around, which, to be fair, or to be precise, stimulate grass growth, and then you move them off before you kill all the grass, which sequesters, I don't know, whatever, 10, 15, 20%, 30% more grass than if you hadn't moved them around. But ignore the fact that, to your point earlier in the show, those are European grasses that aren't deep rooted because you destroyed the original deep rooted original plants, and also never, ever, ever talk about methane, or as Alan Savory calls it, methane. Just don't discuss that. Talk about greenhouse gases and carbon, soil carbon sequestration, which moving cows around helps a little bit.
was this written by Chat GPT? Look at Corinne getting clever.
Oh,
Is
yeah. Well, you know what? It could have been rewritten by his word salad vegan. That's great. That's great. Oh, thank you, NC. Wow.
wait? Let me come up to
Uh,
let me
read some more comments. Yeah, go.
Danielle. Danielle,
Danielle. It's Danielle.
yes, Daniel.
Yeah.
Have I thought about having an online dialogue with some of these pro ranchers? I think about it all the time, all the time. I think the real key is getting a moderator that would be fair. I'd love to be the moderator, but no one would ever consider me to be fair. But here's how it would go down. And even me, without, I'm not going to consider myself an expert. I've heard the same bullshit coming out of their mouths for so long that I already know what their argument is.
Yeah.
And you can defeat it with common sense if you have a moderator who will force them to stick to the facts, stick to the topic, and not start talking about America, families. And I'm like, were we talking about America?
And well, we should tease this idea. I mean, the trouble I have with it is people don't know this about me. I'm not a conflict guy. Like when
Mm,
somebody's across the aisle from me, they're just outright lying. When I'm here, I can say safely because I'm hiding behind not being in front of the person and saying that's a total lie. When it's, some nice man like that rancher out at the park who's totally friendly with us, he's a human being. He is. He is.
mm.
It's like, do you believe what you're saying now? Of course, I can play to the audience and say, how can you advocate in that case specifically for putting in more cows to eat the grass down when you could just have the elk do it? Explain that one to me. And then keep them on target. And then when they talk about family and economy, they say, well, you didn't answer the question, and repeat the question. It would be what you do with Trump. You just go at the same thing again and again and again. And if you watch Jim Jordan, right, in Congress, you see what the Fox News type person, which is Jim Jordan, has to do in the face of someone who's just going to keep them hold their feet to the fire. We saw it with Jamie Raskin and Pam Bondi. They just talk nonstop and cut you off, and it would take a moderator of your skill to say, stop,
Yeah.
get back to the question, and just control the conversation because they can't answer. There is no answer. You have to dissemble and disseminate and
We as a
distract.
society have really crumbled, and I can remember the debates between Hillary Clinton and Trump in 2016 or leading up. And it's not that I was a Hillary Clinton fan, but like half of his shit was just smartass remarks and
Yeah,
things. And instead of being denounced for it,
yeah.
the silly crowd full of children thought it was great.
He
I'm like,
won. He won the debate. It's yeah. I
I'm like
mean,
you're not answering questions, and you're okay with that. I don't want to get into if I do an online thing. I don't want a Pam Bondi situation where she doesn't answer a single thing and just makes smart ass remarks while sitting in defiance of the evidence in front of her.
by the way, Honest Doubter says um, great vegan YouTuber Jeffrey Phillips, I've been on his show, debated Garland Farms. You call him an alleged rancher on this topic. Well, give right, Honest
Alleged.
Doubter. How did that go? Was it great, and we should all watch it? I mean, which I would. I've
You know
been.
what? Yeah.
I guess I've never seen a great example. I've never because it has to devolve into argument because you're going to basically, if any rancher is daring enough or confident enough to come on and discuss any of this with one of us or both of us or one of us, I mean, they know we're going to be calling out the truth. And part of them knows that's the case. They can't do it. They can't agree. Albert Strauss wouldn't come on with us.
No.
I mean, what would be the benefit to him? He's going to win an argument and prove that his his
Look,
dairy farms are non-destructive.
you have to stick to the criteria. You don't get to ramble on forever. You have to answer the question. You don't get to change the topic. You know, all of these things. If they would agree to these things, I'd be down.
Well, it's something to consider. I mean, God knows it would bring people to the table to watch. I mean, that's the whole point of, in media these days is when you see conflict, it gets clicks, right?
Yeah, honest doubter, you didn't actually say an opinion. Was this good? Was this bad?
Yeah, please let us know.
National Parks Princess has joined us. Go ahead.
Good morning, National Parks Princess. It's a great name. The actual evidence needed is point raised itself. In the picture you showed in the beginning, which is on the fence line, as you drive throughout the seashore, you can see the evidence in real time. Well, you apparently are someone who's educated about what you're looking at because you drive out right out there today, this week, everything is rolling green hills, and which is the ad for this show, and it's something we've already covered. It for the average person, in my opinion, they look at rolling green hills of Marin and think, "Oh, it's so beautiful."
Hmm.
And we want to keep it that way. In fact, they argue now that we need to keep these grasslands and trees are a problem, and eucalyptus trees are a problem, and elk are a problem. I mean, anything's a problem that doesn't maintain the rolling green hills, which are an artificial environment created by the cattle industry and deforestation in the first place.
Well, you could also, there's another form of changing your thinking. We have green rolling hills that are native brush.
Right.
It doesn't
Right.
have to be European grass. It's still green.
Actually, back to the picture I showed, where
Right.
the right side is coyote brush. It is, I mean, it's 6 feet of vegetation, not 6 inches of perennial annual vegetation.
Now, I want to go further with what National Parks Princess said because as it relates to what you were just reading, because all these claims being made by Sasha, um, we should be able to visit any of these locations that she has supposedly conducted these studies on in the past and see some incredible accomplishments in terms of nature because the last sentence you read said that they were restoring nature. I would like to go and see that.
So that
We
may
will be
set us
there.
up. If you want, we're at 5 to 10, and we can run a little long today if that works for you. But let's dig into one of the PhD scientists, Sasha Gennett's papers. The one that makes the bold claim. Let's see if I can find it here. That livestock grazing. So here's a study. So the other things are we can just say, well, those are just PR statements supported by science. So this is her doctoral frickin' thesis at UC Berkeley,
Hmm.
PhD awarded to this woman. Now she's one of 4 scientists on this paper. So I assume it was her doctoral thesis to write this topic, but then this is the eventual study that got published along with 3 other scientists. I have not dug in to find out who these people are: Erica Spotswood, Michelle Hammond, and James Bartolome. But she's the lead author, Sasha Gennett. Livestock grazing supports native plants and songbirds in a California grassland. And I'm going to answer my own question I asked you earlier, Skylar, which is, well, what's your takeaway when you read that title? Scientists get to choose the title.
Yeah.
It's just freaking fucking brilliant. You don't say livestock grazing in this specific spot
Right.
for these specific chosen, why did we choose them? Native plants and specific songbirds in one specific annual grassland in this study showed benefit. Instead, you make the broad claim. It's as if they're appealing to the cattle industry and saying, hey guys, we're here, hire us, we're your buddy,
Yeah.
by making it a statement. Livestock grazing supports native plants and songbirds in a California grassland, which implies, I mean, it freaking implies to the layman anyway, that it's almost universal, that all livestock grazing supports all native plants and all songbirds in a, to be fair, not all, but a annual grassland. Well, let's get into it, shall we?
Well, hold on, because I'll do you one better.
Please.
You added the word benefit because you interpreted the word benefit. But,
Supports.
and
Support.
yeah,
Right.
what does support mean? Like, that's not, didn't say that it improved or increased the population. Supports. I mean, shit. If I walk out there and throw a bag of chips on the ground and a bird eats it, I'm going to argue that I supported them. No, I'm serious.
I know.
The
It's
word
perfect.
support is open to interpretation.
Lay's potato chips support native songbirds.
And that was an extreme, but like if I went out there and planted some invasive grasses and birds actually ate some of it because that's what was available to them, well, I supported them. Well, guess what? If I get rid of those invasive grasses and put in native plants, I really supported them, didn't I?
Support them more.
I'm just saying that word by itself in a title should already make people suspicious.
Right.
What the fuck does it mean?
So, what is this study? So the abstract starts with just, I mean, this thing is what 40 something, 48 pages long, folks. So we're not going to get into it. I actually asked Liz Dodge, who's a scientist herself, would you look this over and give me your scientist opinion of it?
Mm,
And to her credit, she said, well, I can't just look it over. I need to read the whole thing.
mm.
And I'm like, oh man, I'm sorry I asked. Please do so. Thank you, Liz. Get back to me when you have the chance to spend, hours reading all this nonsense. For me, the Mark Twain sentiment
But
applies.
that was a responsible scientist's answer. That's
Exactly.
what she should have
Oh, no,
said.
no, it's great. It was an appreciation, but also a frustration
Sure.
because I'm the Mark Twain guy that wants to say I don't need to read this bucket of swill to know it's a bucket of swill. And so, over 8 years, 8 year study, we measured the effects of plant community composition, vegetation structure, and livestock grazing on occurrence of three grassland bird species: western meadowlark, horned lark, and grasshopper sparrow. Where? At sites in Central California during breeding season. So why do you laugh? Why do you laugh? It's so specific? What?
Well, I'd like to know why they chose those three.
Exactly.
Um,
Thank
and,
you. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Why those three
I mean,
birds?
there's probably a backstory, people. You should ask these things. You have to ask questions to see through bullshit. And then breeding season. Gee, the birds that you already know still exist during breeding season, I wonder if you'll encounter them.
And then, so now here's a statement of fact. I believe in California's Mediterranean type climatic region, coastal and inland grassland vegetation is dominated by exotic annual grasses. Well, what does that mean, actually, right there? You know what that means, right?
Non-native.
Non-native, exactly, exotic, and usually for cattle because the cattle have been brought in for 150 years or more, a couple hundred years in this country, with occasional patches of native bunchgrass and meaning surviving bunchgrass. I'm not sure what they mean by forbs. That's a general term. Livestock grazing, primarily with beef cattle, is the most widely used management tool. Well, that we'd agree. There's a true statement buried in here. Compared with ungrazed plots, grazed plots had higher bare ground native plant cover. That is counterintuitive, if true.
It's not
And
true.
I love this. You're going to explain this to me, Skyward, because you have a degree. And vertically heterogeneous vegetation. Is Skyward? Are you just rubbing your? Yeah, okay. He's bleeding. He's
Well,
bleeding on the inside. Oh God! And then grazed plots had also less plant litter and shorter vegetation. Well, yeah, you think? Higher native plant cover, which is predominantly composed of bunch grasses in our study area, was associated with livestock grazing and north facing aspects. I don't understand that sentence for the life of me.
it's not true. There's no way.
Right. Anyway, and then of course, this is really fascinating.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Listen, if you go too far, I'm not going to remember a point from
Okay.
earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. Interrupt anytime. I'm a New Yorker. Go for it.
Okay, so this is kind of like, okay, there's the exotic non-native grasses that are there because of that industry. And they're making it sound like they are doing you a favor by managing those grasses. Let me make our faces big during this little spiel.
Thank you.
Okay, so they're doing us a favor that their cattle are eating the things that they brought and that they want their cattle to eat. Now, where they really, really go too far is to claim that they are managing the exotic grasses as if they agree that more native is the goal. In Point Reyes National Seashore, ranchers were caught bulldozing native brush in order to create more grassland, which means more exotic grasses. They were decreasing the amount of native plants illegally, by the way. Illegally, these wonderful stewards of the land, illegally bulldozing native vegetation in order to increase the amount of grass there. Because why? Because it's a commodity plant for their commodity animals, for their pocketbooks. How are these the same? Is this the same industry? I'm sorry. These are the people that are reducing native plants because their cattle want to eat grass. And you want me to believe that in other places you're using cattle that eat grass to increase the native brush that you don't want to be there because your cattle aren't going to eat it?
And ranchers, would you agree, they want plants that their cows can eat? They don't actually care whether they're native or non-native in those labels, which I also have trouble with in another respect. But they just want plants on their leased ranches. They're not theirs. They don't own it. That their cows eat. Right?
Yeah,
That's the goal. I mean, they don't really care where it comes from. They want something their cows can eat, preferably growing, so they don't have to truck it in, which they do anyway,
right,
because there's not enough food on the land for their thousands of cows back in the day until
right.
recently to eat. They need to truck in food and they need to truck in water because they also drink the water table dry. Um,
We got a lot of comments. Do you want to read the article or read comments?
Comments. Oh, definitely. I want to engage with the audience for sure. I appreciate our audience. They're educated. Anushka, I did an internship. Oh my God, Anushka did an internship at the Nature Conservancy a few years ago, and their new leadership was very focused on massively increasing their funding. They would say their impact can be bigger the bigger their funding. Well, that is certainly true. My question would be: is how do they massively increase their funding? I could be cynical and assume it's going to be playing to the cattle industry, but their money, actually, I was reading up on that, comes from a variety of sources: private donations, government grants, and then I assume that they're not going to turn down money from the cattle industry if they're friendly to the cattle industry, which they certainly are. That's just
Mhm.
common sense at this point. But so interesting, Anushka. That's a conversation. And then she says also in another quote, when the scientist claims that grazing supports something, she chooses to compare it to the alternative of her choice. And you
Mm,
always find a worse alternative than what your suggestion is.
mm.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's cherry picked. It's so cherry picked. But again, I mean, you have to be really discerning and take time and care about a topic. This is the service we provide to you folks, and we're not. Well, I'm not a scientist in any respect, but I have common sense and lots of it. You got to read these studies and think about them. Don't just accept them because it's a PhD scientist.
Observation science is still a thing that people have forgotten about. Not only should you read those things, then you should go and observe and see for yourself if what they're claiming happened.
Thank you, Skylar. It's funny, that actually echoes what Julie Phillips, the elk biologist with a master's, for those who want a science credential, was telling us, which is she was calling us activists citizen scientists who went
Mm,
out onto the land and absolutely observed, oh, there are dead elk here. There are lots of dead elk carcasses. This
mm,
elk has died and is dehydrated and underfed.
mm.
We actually make a contribution by what we see with our own eyes on the land, not just extrapolation of theoretical studies. Fab Dan, I'll call you that now. I think it's difficult because you have to deprogram the baseline shift. You have to deprogram the baseline assumption. When your basis is 100 to 150 years of plowed under land, your point of reference is skewed. Very true. Exactly. There are people. I mean, when I was just doing don't cut down the eucalyptus trees, which is a whole other controversial topic, people were saying, these shouldn't be here. I hate them. Even
Skip,
though,
skip. Corinne.
oh, thanks, Corinne. $12 donation from Corinne. Thank you very much.
Oh, Honest Doubter got back to us about that.
Oh, Jeffrey Destroy.
Link, please, link.
Honest Doubter, yeah. Send us a link or send me a link, at least privately. I definitely want to watch that then. I have not seen him debate somebody, and that's it. Anushka, you must understand these Trump people and ranchers speak and act only in self interest. Truth does not matter to them.
No.
They do not care about anyone or anything that does not serve them. Wow, Anushka, I'm both thrilled you've become so hardened in that opinion, and of course, think you're dead right.
Well, that's why there aren't any consequences when the person that they were supporting is caught lying. The supporters never actually even cared that they were lying.
So, Anushka, so they never take part in an honest debate with integrity.
Which brings us back to how will we have a debate on here with integrity?
Well,
It would be fun. It'd be great.
in real time, you call out each lie as it comes out. And the trick is with someone like a Kevin Lunny, who would probably be the one who would agree to do it.
Yeah,
He
probably.
always like the Jim Jordan of the ranching community. He'll speak fast and furious and mix truth with lies. And he's an affable guy. You know, he comes off reasonable, but he's sharp and he knows how to spin. I've heard him on interviews before. He did one with Ray Cooper years ago, and Ray wasn't going out to get him, but really interesting where he said some stuff that was true and then devolved into pure propaganda nonsense, like the ranchers were always supposed to stay forever, which is a lie. Um, these particular bit,
Where you at?
Fab Dan, these particular bids are likely in different vegetation type and height. Generalists over generalization over specialization. Architect the study to get the conclusion you want. Yes, exactly. Reverse engineer. I was thinking the same thing. So architect the study to get the alternative you want. Reverse engineer. In other words, I want to do a study showing that some grasslands and some bird species benefit from cattle grazing. I can design a study to do that. And in fact, this is what this study is that's up on the left here. We can go back to this or not, but it goes into it. And basically it's saying, I mean, just cut to the chase, folks, and I can put this on my website if anybody actually wants to read this damn thing. God bless you. It is tough going. Just let me just show this thing. Look how long this is. Fancy about vegetation structure and mosaics and study areas. 36 plots were sampled at 4 sites in the northern Diablo Range or Intercoast Range, east of the San Francisco Bay. Oh, I mean, detail. Oh, it's very impressive. Oh, look, we have a chart. Very impressive. It must be science. It must be true. It goes on and on. Livestock grazing and fire. Well, of course, if you cut down the grass, you won't have fire. Sure. You can also pave and put up a parking lot, to quote the song, and you won't have fire. Oh, look. Now we have a very impressive scientific formula with northness and the cosine of the aspect pi over 180. Very impressive. I mean, this must be accurate because look at the intelligence.
I've got to tell you a shark story too. That exploitive fisherman who came in and started manipulating scientists because they needed his money. So the shark started dying because of how ruthless these tagging practices were. So what'd they do? Oh, they put out a graphic that showed a scientist looking through a thing, analyzing the blood that said that the sharks weren't stressed. Hey, everyone, they died. Calm.
This might offend some people, and I sure hope it does, but it would be like having, go to Central Casting and get 3 good-looking Teutonic actors in lab coats with clipboards, taking notes, standing outside the ovens at Auschwitz. And they're going to measure the effects of the cremation rate of the Jewish children.
I keep thinking you have a Jewish background, as if like your family suffered, because you bring this up all the time.
It's called a Jewish identity. I'm not Jewish religiously, but I have a very strong Jewish identity. Proud of my people, as we say. And it's in New York, and it's not religious at all, but absolutely, you're raised with this. I mean, it's just in the culture. Half of New York when I was growing up was Jewish, and Hitler is used at the kitchen frickin' table as a name to throw. The way we will now, this generation, talk about Trump. He's just there, and it was an attempted extermination of entire culture, as it was also for blacks and homosexuals and physically disadvantaged. I mean, just on and on. But I bring it up all the time. I also bring it up because it works as an attention-getting device. You mentioned the Holocaust, like, oh my gosh, and now you have their attention.
Did you read this one?
When the scientist claims that grazing, quote unquote, supports something, she chooses to compare it to alternatives of her choice.
Convenient.
You can always find a worse alternative than what your suggestion is. Yeah, that's all right. We read that before. It's worth repeating. It's key. No, it's great. It's great. But anyway, this study goes on and on. I mean, look at all this stuff. And
And
then,
you know this works to their favor, Jack, because how many people aren't going to read this? I'm sorry, isn't
yeah,
that the truth? People aren't going to read it. You know what they will do? They'll go back to what the title said. They're like,
right.
oh wow, look how long this was, and it had graphs. The title's probably true.
And then I will get to. I'm going to go through all. We'll get all this stuff. Very impressive. I mean, poor. It's like putting out 3 million or 6 million pages of Epstein files. Who's going to look through all that? Except ideally some congressmen will.
I would like my thesis. I need someone to fund me my study, but mine will be to disprove Sasha Gennett's studies.
Yeah, there you go. But you don't. I mean, yeah, I guess. But it's like common sense can just debunk this stuff right away.
Which
Let me see if
exactly?
I want to get to her conclusion. Here we
Okay,
are. Conclusion.
great.
Although habitat needs differ somewhat among the three bird species in this guild, fancy word. Our study indicates that flatter topography, higher native species abundance, and moderate levels of livestock grazing allow for or support all three species in Mediterranean annual dominated grasslands in California. So she chose three birds and different plots at different sites and concluded that the three bird species either were not affected by the cattle grazing or benefited because the cattle basically, ate the grass and beat the land flat and dry. And the birds did well with that. So from that, she concludes annual grasslands and birds benefit from grazing.
I'm actually struggling with that sentence. It was an interesting combination of things.
Yeah.
Where higher native species abundance.
Yeah. I don't know what that means. It's so vague as to be meaningless. Which native species? What are you talking about? I mean, it's
Which
go ahead. It's scientific gobbledygook. It really is. So
moderate? What's a moderate level of livestock grazing? I
right,
mean,
right.
all these things. I mean, the sentence needs about 20 definitions within the sentence.
And it gets worse because there's another sentence right behind that. However, much of the flat, native-dominated Mediterranean grassland habitat type has already been converted to agricultural or urban land uses in California, and that which remains continues to be at very high risk of degradation or conversion. Well, there's some truth in that. And it's found that the larger grassland patch size is important for these bird species. For these bird species, okay, so what? Oh, that's right. So taken together, there is strong evidence that protection of large blocks of remaining habitat may be an urgent need for grassland bird conservation. With
This is
respect to
sort of like
grassland management, go
so
ahead.
that's like the sage grouse argument, where it's like, hey, we have to protect this grazing area where we have found sage grouse.
Yes,
And then
right.
the next stage is, well, actually, F the sage grouse.
Right. So you destroy a habitat and to establish, as we're discussing here with our readers, or by our listeners, a new baseline. The baseline is we have 18,000 acres of so-called pastoral zone, which is beaten down land for pasture at Point Reyes. And now if there are, I don't know, starlings out there or huge packs of crows living on the land, you can then argue scientifically that if you return that pasture land to forest or another habitat, you're hurting those new now native bird populations, although because crows are native, right?
Anushka has a nice detail.
Allow for, that's in quotes, allow for means that the birds tolerate the presence, but then the title only includes the words support, not allow.
Yeah, allow in the title wouldn't be quite as alluring, would it?
Yeah, wouldn't quite as allowing. So with respect to grassland management, livestock grazing reduces litter, meaning they eat, and creates bare patches through removal of biomass each growing season.
Stop. Stop.
Oh, Skyward, thank you for putting up with this. I know it's painful.
No, but okay.
No.
So this is the brainwashing of the human race, thinking that bare ground is good. When I look at where goats have gone, I'm like, okay, so we are pretty close to this habitat looking like a paved road. And as horrifying as that is to me, people are cheering for it. And here's what's really sad. Okay, you're supposed to have litter, vegetative litter. You're supposed to have biomass on the ground. In fact, it's so important that the ranchers were required to leave a certain amount of the residual dry matter on the ground and still wouldn't do it in Point Reyes because of their overgrazing practices. And yet here's a study saying that bare ground is good. Jack, if you read any of the studies that like George Werthner has sent me and Laura Cunningham has sent me, you know what thrives on bare disturbed soil? Invasive grasses, non-native grasses.
Right.
Basically, Sasha's conclusion here is that if we keep destroying the land, the plants that aren't supposed to be here will keep coming back. There's not going to be any progress toward native plants. Her conclusion here supports my hypothesis that there's no way any of her study sites actually have more native plants on them now than when she began her studies.
Yeah. And then it gets worse because her conclusion goes on just another two sentences. With respect to grassland management, livestock grazing reduces litter and creates bare patches through removal of biomass each growing season, which is beneficial for native plant species and encourages vegetation structure preferred by all these three hand-chosen birds, carefully selected. Grazing is therefore a compatible or supportive management activity. So
Okay.
that's the conclusion that she's got to come to, right?
Well, I mean, this whole paragraph's a conclusion, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or this whole
And
page.
that's it, actually. That's the entire conclusion on the page right there. All of it.
Okay.
Conclusion
Uh,
above.
a couple more things. Native plants will try to come back, and I witness them trying to come back. And then the livestock show up and bring it to an end. So if I were a scientist who was manipulative and being paid to be manipulative, such as Sasha, I would go out at a very specific time of year, record that native plants were trying to come back, and then ignore the fact that when the livestock came back, they first and foremost brought the native plant return to an end and then continued to promote the non native plants. That's the reality of what takes place with livestock grazing.
And then, of course, we haven't touched on water. We haven't touched
Oh,
on
geez.
methane emissions out of the front and back of a cow. But
Oh,
anyway, Skylar, it is 10:18. My
yeah,
my thought is always like wrap it up so this isn't
we
so
do need to.
long people won't watch.
If anyone, people understand that there are native grasses. Like if you actually conclude that hey, these three birds like grassland, well, that's probably true. It doesn't have to be those grasses. There is an option for native perennial grasses to be there for those birds to enjoy. And they will still produce seeds and flowers and whatever the birds wanted without being annuals that die off and
We
turn into biofuel.
we wandered into an area. Laura Cunningham confirmed that we were indeed wading through original bunch grasses out at Point Reyes Seashore, just south of Abbott's Lagoon, behind the radio building where the tunnel of trees is. Skylar and I hacked out through there. It's near the former AT&T ranch and the Coast Guard, but there's huge habitat out there, or many acres that have not been trampled by cows yet. So there's something worth protecting, and you can actually go see it for yourself and see the difference. Teeming with wildlife.
Thanks, Jack. Thank you for getting me riled up.
Food for indigestion. I mean, food for thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks everyone for jumping in and being so active here. It really is great. Please,
Yeah.
afterwards, if you would, as I will do because I should, is go to the recording and just say, "Hey, good show. If you liked it," some kind of a comment to get kind of a conversation going in the YouTube that'll post 5 minutes after we stop here. We want to get the algorithm noticing these shows and getting more people to watch. So thank you for being here. This is for Skyward Thomas, the Watching Humans YouTube channel, and I'm Jack Gescheit of Tree Spirit Project. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you, everyone who tuned in. Thank you, Jack. Bye.